cameras used to be the endpoint of camera data. It was a human looking at images or video.
Hmm.
But I think we're shifting where cameras are consuming information where the human will never even look at the images or video. It's just too much, but they'll look at a summarized version or some answer that they want
Yeah.
that's compressed in some way, maybe down to
Montage,
text
maybe.
or a
Yeah.
montage or something.
Welcome to the Founders Anonymous podcast. I'm Raj Suri, co-founder of Lima and Tribe. And today with me, I have Jeevan Kalanithi, who is the co-founder and CEO of OpenSpace AI. Is that right?
Yes, that is right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, Jeevan, welcome to the show. First of all, let our audience know that Imad couldn't make it today. He is otherwise occupied. He'll explain what he's up to later. But today we have a great conversation talking about AI and Jeevan, you and I have known each other for a long time.
Yep.
When did we first meet? We met at MIT, right? Back in
At MIT,
2009.
I
Yeah.
feel like I met you like at Anna's or somewhere around there. I don't know what we were talking about, but I do remember that.
I remember. I think I remember you were interviewing at some point. You and David were interviewing to be consultants on Elec Hart or something like that. Like you were like not interviewing exactly, but we were having conversations to be like a
Yeah.
consultant because you had a consulting thing for a while, or you were wanting to be consultants or
Oh,
something,
that's
right?
right. Yeah. Right after I finished at MIT, we had a little consulting company called Taco Lab where we did
Right.
some tech projects. They were all over the place. Remember, we consulted on a smart greeting card for
Hmm.
Hallmark, and then we
Oh,
we actually very randomly we redid Sequoia's website, Sequoia Capital's website.
really?
That was like it was two of us, and honestly, I knew like all my software experience was either in AI systems or microcontrollers. Like I didn't know anything about web stuff. So Brent really did all the work there. But yeah, we had a little consulting company and that we did before we started our Dave and I started our first startup, and we sold that one and then opened
Correct.
number two.
So you were MIT Media Lab, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, Media Lab. Was that a PhD or a master's? What were you doing there?
I have a lowly master's degree. Did not get a PhD.
Yeah, nothing in Media Lab is lowly. So I used to like trawl the halls of the Media Lab, trying to recruit people to come work on my stuff, and because I always was so inspired by the Media Lab. I was like, God, these people are this kind of this intersection between like creativity and art and technology, and is exactly the type of thing that inspires me. So, I'm sure that you got a chance to like meet a lot of inspirational people. David was also at Media Lab.
Yeah, yeah. So Dave Merrill was co-founder of our first company, still a great friend. Started an amazing company called Elroy Air, which is unreal. It's like a robotic airplane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Dave and I actually know each other from undergrad. We were like friends, roommates, same major, we're in a band together,
Mm-hmm.
in fact. And then he went to MIT pretty much right after undergrad. I moved to New York, did a bunch of random stuff before rejoining him there, and working on some projects together.
Yeah, and your first company was Siftio.
Yeah,
Yeah, can you explain what this was? This was a really cool idea.
yeah. So I look back on that company with such fondness because it was such a interesting, crazy idea. So essentially, we built like a tangible like game system, for
Hmm.
kids and families, and it consisted of these little intelligent blocks with displays that were aware of each other that people could write games for.
Hmm.
And we did some cool stuff. We had like licensed Ninja Turtles game and had the
Hmm.
creator of Magic the Gathering create something for us. And we shipped the product into, in the stores. Had made two generations of it. You could buy it at Best Buy or whatever. So
Hmm.
that was really cool. And that was based on some work that we did at the Media Lab. And, being in the right place at the right time is cool. We just got an opportunity to do a talk at the TED conference on that work.
Hmm.
Um, and we're like, all right, well, let's just do it. Why not?
Hmm. Hmm.
And Dave
Hmm.
did an excellent job. And that kind of sparked us starting that company and, raising money and doing all that, which we eventually sold to a company
Hmm.
called 3D Robotics.
Yeah, I remember the product was called Siftables, right? Is that what it was? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just like a high tech toy, for kids. The
Yeah.
type of thing that I wish there was more of. As a parent now, I'm always looking for things like that, and there's a lot of them. But there could I wish there were even more because they're a lot of fun for the kids to play with. Um, And you have kids, right? So have you had your kids play with something like
Yeah,
Siftables?
it's funny. Like, I had my first kid, my daughter, um, while we were running that company. Um, and then I've got two kids now. They're 13 and 10. And they weren't old enough to really play with the product until after we'd sold the company. And but I have. You can still get them. I mean, like they're not manufactured anymore or anything, but I have some of the siftables, right? Siftio cubes is what we called them after we turned into a company, on my shelf there, and the kids just played with them one day when they're old enough, and it was cool. That was amazing, and they just sat there and played with them for a long time, and I was like, all right, that passes the test. I mean, that's ultimately like if they like it and they use it, then you've done at least part of what you're supposed to do. You're starting a company, have users who like the thing that you built.
Exactly. I mean, my model for building anything in consumer is like A, you have to like it yourself. B, your friends and family have to like it, and then C, like people who are their friends and family have to like it. Like you have to go to like increasing the outer layers of
Exactly. It's
yeah,
like many things in startups. It's like first prove it to yourself that you can do it or like
mhm,
it. But that's not enough. That's step one. Then can you get your outer ring? And then if you can get people that are basically strangers to be on
mhm.
board, then you might be onto something.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how I think about it. So, I mean, to me, Siftables, and Siftio is very unique because it's consumer hardware, right? And then that's like one of the hardest categories to innovate in. I mean, if you look at the company, there's so many companies that have actually not done well in that
Yeah.
space, but it feels like I mean, when you succeed, it can be a massive hit, right? Like there's
Yeah.
obviously the iPhone is a consumer hardware product
Right.
and stuff. Many companies have gone public, Fitbit and GoPro, even though they actually, they tend to hit a peak at some point. But
Yeah.
you know, how do you feel about how that category has evolved? Because you almost see no companies like this getting funded
Yeah.
in the last 10 years, basically.
I think it is super difficult. I mean,
Mhm,
um, yeah, we ran the company, we sold it, and that's good.
mhm,
But the actual frequency of truly phenomenal outcomes are very low,
mhm,
um, and uh, and they consume a lot of cash. I mean, it's I think it's very hard because the way I would say it is like there are consumer hardware products, and then you have to say, well, which ones are most likely to be developed by a startup effectively, and which are most effectively developed by a large company.
mhm,
Truth is, large companies generally have most of the chips stacked in their favor
mhm,
for consumer hardware in a way that's different than other categories.
mhm,
Um, you need a big capital base. Channels are very important, um, and oftentimes, I think in consumer hardware, you can be a victim of your own success because if you have something that works well and people like it, you face these two challenges. One is the more products you have to make, the more cash it consumes. They're very capital intensive.
mhm,
And yes, you can get debt and things like that to do that, but it's never quite that simple. Um, a person who was on my board uh, at Siftio and is on my board now, actually, an awesome guy named Alan Henricks. He was
mhm,
multiple times CFO, took companies public, really one of these gold Midas touch guys, and he's awesome. I've learned a lot from him. He was
mhm,
the CFO of Pure Digital. You remember those flip cameras? And that company
for
did
sure.
well, and Cisco bought them for a bunch of money. Um, and he always said, you know, every year you're betting your company because you have this one window, Q4, to see if people like what you have or not. It will it will tie up all your cash to fund the product, and you don't even really know if people like it until you ship it. So the loop is very open between when you have the idea and whether you get actual feedback from the customers.
Mhm,
Um, and you can't absorb a miss. And larger companies could, they can ship a product that
mhm.
is not a winner, and they won't get killed. I mean, Apple has shipped stuff that is not good, but people don't like. But if you do that as a consumer hardware company, you can die. And the other thing is that as if you create a category, um, the R&D cost to develop Gen 2 and Gen 3 and Gen 4, they oftentimes go up because you have to ship more and more sophisticated features that are just expensive to develop. And that's pretty gnarly from an OpEx point of view. So, um, So yeah, it's hard. I mean, whatever. Any startup is hard. They're all hard, So
Yeah, they all have different types of hard. I agree, but there's some
yeah,
startups which are easier than others. I think,
yeah,
like and like
yeah,
like SaaS companies in general are easier, I think, than consumer
yeah,
hardware, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
because you can deterministically, kind of like find a formula for success in
yeah.
SaaS company. You can there's a you could talk to your customers, give you very regular feedback. They'll tell you exactly what they want, right? And like you can kind of iterate your way to success. As you mentioned, I think this consumer hardware thing, you need a little bit of luck probably early on, and then you also probably need to like fund the company well,
Yeah.
and then you need to be really skillful, as you said, in Gen 2 and 3, right? Like as you grow the category. But for me, I'm fascinated by that because I think like some of the biggest winners in the space and that dominate our lives, today, like came from consumer hardware. Like Tesla is a good example of that, right? Very difficult company to build, right? But it's
Yeah.
when it succeeds, it's a dominant company, right?
Oh, no,
And
totally.
the, over $1 trillion. I think they're a trillion or they're close to a trillion in market cap at this point.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. But I almost view companies like that as like outliers. That they're not necessarily object lessons for other founders because,
mm,
you know, um, if you don't have the credibility um, to raise absolutely insane amounts of money, you just can't. Like, if someone says, "Hey, I want to start the next Tesla," and they aren't already like very wealthy and can pull in massive amounts of money, I would be like, okay, maybe do Tesla, your version of Tesla, after you've founded and taken a software company public, and you
Yeah,
have that
I agree
pull
with
to
that. I agree with that.
like,
A first-time founder should not be trying to start Tesla. Yeah, it's
yeah,
you need to have had a win, I think, in your career.
yeah,
Um, so tell me a little bit about what you're doing at OpenSpace. I think I talked to you right before you started this company, where you were incubating it. You incubated this out of Lux Capital, is that right?
yeah, yeah. So after my tour at 3D Robotics, I took some time off and didn't do anything, which was great. And then yeah, started working on OpenSpace and started it with a couple other MIT Media Lab buddies, Mike Fleischman and Philip DeCamp. It's a pretty simple idea. Like, our mission is to simplify how the world gets built. Like, we want to build computer vision and AI powered tools for people to actually build real stuff, build real buildings, like construction people. Um, and the core product is pretty straightforward. We've made it like really easy to have a complete 100% complete visual record of any building inside and out. Kind of think of it like a Google Street View of a project. If you could just be building a building, if you've done a home remodel, you could probably even imagine the value of this.
Hmm.
You just have this complete record of everything, and you have therefore like the instant replay, time machine, truth serum, call it whatever you want. Just
Hmm.
a way to see what is actually going on from anywhere at any time. And that's the basic idea. And we sell it to builders. Um, and it's gone pretty well. We've like amassed a large amount of data. Our customers have collected, I think 40 billion square feet of imagery data. And give you a sense, like the Empire State Building is like 3 million square feet. So that's like, I don't know. I should do the math more easily in my head, but it's a lot of
Hmm.
information.
Hmm.
And we've been building various pieces of technology on top of all that data that can point people to the right answer, that can understand what's in those images, which is really cool. We call that spatial AI, which is the ability for a computer to really understand what's going on in real physical space and give people answers.
If I can explain to like the audience, it's like what I did some studying on this right before this episode. Like people are like mapping out construction sites using a camera on like I guess do they normally wear it on their helmet?
You can, yeah, that's typically people do is they go for a
Yeah,
walk around the project and they put this
yeah.
stick a camera on their hard hat. You can hold it if you want to, but it's just very convenient to stick it on there and walk around. This is normal behavior for
360
people that
video,
build
right?
buildings.
It's a
Yeah.
360 camera.
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah.
360 camera, so it maps out this construction site, and it helps take like these timestamps, right? Or like it records moments in time as the construction project progresses, and then you can always go back in time and see what it looked like at a certain time. And this is a very important in construction, right? But you need to see how things look over time, and also people who are remote need to be able to see how like a job site is looking like.
Yeah. Yeah. If you think about how people do this work without the technology that we have, which obviously is how they've done it, Well, it's just extremely time consuming and conflict oriented because you're like, hey, X and Y isn't done. It's like, okay, is that true or not? I don't know. You have to physically walk over there and check. And
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
if it's covered up by a wall, you have to rip it open. It's terrible, you know? So if you just have really convenient data at your fingertips where you can just go check and see from anywhere, it just makes life easier. And, you know, by the way, I mean, the idea of photo documentation for building stuff is not new, and people have been doing that since cameras were invented, right? All we did is create a better mousetrap that can just not just be a set of random photos that don't know their location, but a totally comprehensive, geolocated, easy to use way of leveraging the fact that a picture is truly worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sounds good. And like how many? I did some like AI searches on like how big you guys are. You have quite a few customers now. A lot of people using this as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. The company's like 6, 7 years old now, and we have, uh, yeah, a lot. You know, it's technology is used in like over 100 countries now, and we have like sales teams internationally, in addition to the U.S. And you know, um, thousands upon thousands of companies using it, which of course means lots more users than that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And these are big. Are we target like what we call mid-market and enterprise construction companies, owners and trades? So um, they are they're not there are some very big companies that use us, and they use us on like thousands of projects at a time. So brands that people have heard of for sure, and also um, companies that you maybe not have heard of, but almost for sure built the building that your listeners currently in. You know, if they're not in a home, it's not unlikely that they're in a building that one of our customers built. It's cool. It's really cool to see buildings that have used our technology, and there's big ones, you know, like Hudson Yards, Los Angeles Rams Stadium, like marquee things, data centers. But it's a lot of small stuff too, and I think that's been one of the keys to our success. Is we knew a bunch of builders prior to starting OpenSpace, right? I should say that at 3D Robotics, we built a product for construction companies using drones. So that's how I kind of got into this area. And we basically prototyped the idea and bootstrapped it with some of these builders that weren't building big stuff, just like small apartment buildings, and even we have customers that just do like retail fit outs. That was key. Like, it's not just for projects with like money to burn on technology. It's just for like builders that are stretched thin, trying to get their jobs done more quickly. Like, that's where we wanted to find product market fit first, and I think that helped us make sure we had a technology and product that was actually scalable and not just for like the top 0.5% of construction projects.
Mm, yeah, yeah. And is it deployed via like a special camera or like an app? You have an app, right? Like the people use. How do you deploy the product?
Yeah, so we don't make any hardware. It's like we're a pretend hardware company, I guess. We use off-the-shelf consumer 360 cameras that other companies make. Like, there's a company called Insta360 that makes these. Ricoh, I'm sure everybody's heard of Ricoh. They make 360 cameras, um, and so our customers just use those. And then our technology consists of a few components. Like, there's an app that is pretty straightforward. You know, you open the app when you're on the project, and it's essentially like taking a video. You say, all right, camera, hit record, then you walk around, and you hit done when you're done, and you upload it. Um, and we have a lot of other functionality that allows our users to like do task management, take notes, and things like that are image first. And then, of course, we have a web application. So if you're away from the job site and on a laptop, you can go to OpenSpace.ai/my project or whatever, and then go look around and see what's there. Um, there's a big, sophisticated kind of computer vision backend that powers all this stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, you guys must be one of the more advanced computer vision companies that are not in like self-driving cars. Like there's I'm excited to see how computer vision has become like a mainstream thing. Actually, I still think computer vision has not peaked. Like voice AI, I think everyone is a very familiar now with voice AI, but they're less familiar with computer vision. I think like it has yet to have a Chat GPT moment, but it's gotten really advanced over the last 8 years.
Yeah, well, I think just to opine on technology, we when we started the company, we were like, okay, like building buildings is very difficult. It's a huge part of the economy. This is a way of making these guys' lives easier, and it's not complicated. It's simple. They're like, yes, this is gonna make my life easier. So we had the seeds of something that we thought could get some traction. Um, and also we're like, well, if this works, then we are gonna we are gonna collect a pretty insane and unique database of real world data, actual real world data, spatial information, visual information, and that should be good for something? Question mark. Stick that kind of thing in the seed presentation. And I got to tell you, some of the stuff that we're able to do and is happening now, I would not have predicted as possible. If you asked me back then, hey, we could do this, I'd be like, nope, doesn't make sense. But there is work getting done that's kind of merging, um, what people think of as AI today, which is like large language models, and spatial information and image information. And we're working on that stuff too. It's pretty it's pretty incredible. It's like this merging of computer vision and sort of large model AI. Like our little phrase at OpenSpace's could call it spatial AI,
Mm.
which is merging spatial computing, which
Hmm.
is my simple definition of that is computers being aware of real physical reality, like via cameras and whatnot. And of course, AI, which is, you know, I remember in the first AI textbook I got, there was a definition of AI. And it was so incredibly vague in a way, but also beautiful because it was vague. It was like getting artificial systems to do things normally associated with human intelligence, period.
Nice.
Like it was
Yeah.
not about any particular technique or anything like that. It was
Yeah.
just getting computers to do smart stuff.
Yeah. It's a beautiful definition, very elegant. Um, yeah, and just I mean, the applications of what you're talking about seem like much broader than even construction. Like you talked about the factory application, but I can think of any physical, basically any kind of physical work, could use this type of technology. I mean, one application that comes to mind is military application. I mean, I think every soldier should have like a camera, right? Like a 360 camera, so generals can make better decisions, right, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the interesting things, about trying to run a disciplined and effective company is is focus and but also not shooting too low, and it's a constant struggle. I'm sure. I mean, you've lived that. We all have lived it, and we definitely do have customers at this point that are outside construction, process industries, things like that. Um, and I'm also like, okay, but depending on how you slice it, you could say construction or real estate's like the actual biggest part of the economy. There's plenty of problems to solve and plenty of market to go get. Um, so keeping our sales team and go-to-market focused on the one area is probably best for us. Um, but you're totally right. Like basically anyone whose job depends on managing real physical reality, like making sure it's in state X or needs to go from state X to state Y, it benefits you to like have this information at your fingertips so you can see how the world is changing without physically walking around and like writing a report or whatever. A lot of people who have this job, if they're building superintendent or in construction, and this is kind of a nerdy way of putting it, but hopefully listeners appreciate it. You think about like writing a report about even a home inspection. That is an extremely lossy, warped information compression thing. Like you are taking the data that is the physical space and you're turning it into text. And much is lost when you do that. And honestly, it creates a lot of problems because it's not that trusted. Because you don't really know. Someone says this or that. You don't even know what they're talking about half the time. And then you may not trust it. And so what do you do? Okay, I gotta need to go look at myself, all this kind of stuff. And it just takes also a lot of time to create those types of reports. And so if you can just disintermediate that, it's like don't write a report. You don't need to write a report anymore. Just go log in OpenSpace and look and see for yourself. And then you can write tasks and stuff within it, but you're just like saving so much time. It's just a nice execution layer. And obviously there's always gonna be reports and there's gonna be drawings and documents of record and 3D models and all that stuff. But if you can have this, visual project execution layer, like we believe it just is going to simplify people's lives. It does. I mean, our customers tell us all the time in a way that isn't. It's not evangelical. It's not like, hey, there's a brand new world and you have to see how OpenSpace is doing and then understand. Like people get it within 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems super valuable. I mean, 3D cameras had a moment with consumers at some point too. I think there was like a few years ago, right? But
Yeah.
I don't think people really use it that much in consumer land anymore. But do you think there's any consumer applications for this type of thing as well? There used to be this idea of drones with cameras, right? Like, and then they were taking 3D, but that seems to have gone away. Like, no one's using drones.
Well, it's funny. Some stuff becomes invisible because you don't think about it anymore. You don't read about it, but it's very much just because it's become part of the fabric of what people just do routinely.
Yeah. Hmm.
So, you know, so I'll take 360 cameras. Yeah, we use them, and they have, these very valuable applications for enterprises. And people still use them if they're going surfing or whatever, because it's a cool way to like capture what you're doing and then be able to edit it down to what you want.
Hmm.
And then drones. I mean, 3D Robotics was a drone company, and I guess it still is. It was eventually acquired by Esri, which is a big GIS or geo information systems company. So,
Hmm.
like the use of drones is, it's not, I wouldn't say it's routine yet um, in certain industries, like mining or construction, but it is much more routine than it was 5 or 10 years ago.
Hmm.
Like these just happens. You look at Skydio, which is a great company, um, other MIT guys, and that continues to grow, and a lot of it is outside the boundaries of consumer applications, which I think is where the real value can be. But there's I still know people that are just flying drones around for fun too. It's just not like it's one of those things where a technology kind of matures
Hmm.
and then you just sort of forget about it. Like in the early days for drones, just making it easy to fly was hard. Making it so it doesn't crash into stuff was hard. Making it so the camera was steady and like the image quality looked good was hard. But all those problems kind of got solved, and now they just kind of work fairly well, and that's out there. They're just
Yeah,
out there.
yeah,
If you
yeah.
want to buy one, you can get it. It's not that expensive or that hard anymore.
It also strikes me that there's a similarity. You mentioned like another MIT company, like Samsara. Do you follow those guys? I mean, like they're instrumenting a physical industry, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Samsara, like, there's a lot of spiritual alignment between what Samsara has done. Obviously, they're bigger than us, and they're public now, and all that kind of stuff. Um, but it's a similar idea. I was talking to Amir Virani. I don't know if you met him, but he was one of the founders of Dropcam. If you remember
Oh yeah, I
Dropcam,
know Dropcam. Yeah,
it was acquired by Google and became the Nest camera system. And I don't know if he said this or something, but I remember in conversation, he said something like, if you put a camera where there wasn't a camera before, it's probably good business in there. Um,
yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think that's kind of true, because images are good, people get it. And I think Samsara has done that. It's like, okay, for fleets. So for people that don't know Samsara, like I think their main thing that they got going on was just putting cameras in trucks and fleets so you could see what's going on, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, it's a good idea. It's a good idea. I'll say one other thing about this conversation I had with Amir when Dropcam was, and they were growing fast. Obviously, they did well. And I remember looking at the Dropcam website, and it showed and so Dropcam was like, if you look at Nest Camera, all these sort of consumer cameras, they kind of figured that category out, first ones to do it, really, like a web connected camera for consumers.
yeah. Hmm.
Um, anyways, you went to their website, and it was just like there's a camera, and it says like, I forget. I'm going to butcher this, but something like simple home camera for whatever. And I was like, hey, Amir, what's kind of weird about your website? Like, you're breaking every sort of rule of marketing. You don't explain what it's for, like why people would want to use it, what's the value proposition. He's like, yeah, it's true. But people kind of just know what cameras are for.
Hmm.
And I was
Hmm.
like, it's true. Like I think people kind of know what the value of getting image data is. So if you can make it extremely convenient to generate imagery in a place where people would like it, and it was hard to do before, you can really start getting momentum for that. And obviously they were successful with that too, and Samsara is as well.
Yeah, no, that's such a great statement. If you put through a camera where there wasn't one before, you can probably build a great business.
Drones are that, by the way. I mean, obviously they're shipping drones,
Yeah,
but a lot of drone application is putting a camera in the sky. I mean, that's what it is.
yeah, that's right. I've had this thesis for a long time, probably for 15 years, that cameras will become, ubiquitous, like basically like in every single corner of our world. And I've always thought there would be a lot more public as well. Like there'd be cameras on every street corner. Now there's a company called Flock Safety who's like putting license plate recognition cameras everywhere. It just seemed like a no-brainer to me. I mean, like, of course, I mean, where I live in Los Altos has them now too, is because people want them for security, right? They want to, they want to know if someone came by their door to pick up their Amazon boxes, they want to know who that person is, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's happening. It's funny. Like, I think one of the reasons I got involved with Lux Capital was, at the time, I was kind of not doing anything. It was great. My kids were littler, taking the zoo every day, and I was deciding what I wanted to do next. Maybe start another company, maybe not, whatever. And I had free time to like have my own personal stupid blog, as one does, and
Mm-hmm.
have various random musings. And one of them that really inspired OpenSpace, you know, I I called it camera ubiquity, and my basic thesis was, if you think about the kind of Moore's law thing, a lot of people express that in terms of like number of CPUs per human at a period of time. And obviously in the 50s, it was like one CPU for like 100 million people or something, right? And then gradually that number, that ratio started to change. And now, of course, today it's like, how many processors are devoted to each individual's life? It's some crazy number. I mean, who knows? Like right now, I have many just on my desk, say nothing of the cloud. Okay, so if you sort of take that as like a ratio that changes, I posited that the same thing is true for cameras, and cameras are just a little further behind. So that was when cameras were first invented. There were very few cameras, and they were very precious things. Um, and then you got to the point and shoot cameras where you might have an individual may have one camera, right? But now it's many. Like your phone has many, your computer does. Then they're kind of getting everywhere. And my basic argument was that heralds a new service area for technology in spatial computing, to go back to that, where you can start building products that are aware of real physical reality. You don't need your customer to buy this expensive thing that's hard to hook up and annoying. Or video conferencing is another good example. Like, remember video conferencing used to require a bunch of gear, and you'd only see it in big company boardrooms, and now it's built in every computer. Um, and so I believe that, and I think that's part of what made OpenSpace even possible, is connecting a camera to the cloud and is possible. Anyways, I heard up a little thing about that, and I remember talking to Lux guys at some CES party, and they were like, "Hey, you should be an EIR here because this is an interesting idea." And I was like, "Okay, sure, why not? I'm not doing anything else." And that was like one of the
You got
things.
sucked back in.
Open space idea got sucked back in. Yeah,
Yeah. Thanks to your blog. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great. I wonder where we are on this curve. I still feel we're early. I still feel like there's a lot more cameras to come in our lives. Like,
Yeah.
um, in general, sensors.
I think you're right. I think like it's still early because yes, there's a bunch of cameras for you and for me, like in our pockets and whatnot. But um, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of creative entrepreneurs out there that'll figure stuff out. There's the cameras that will get inserted into infrastructure, and of course, I think that raises lots of privacy things too. And so there's like cultural things to be solved or not solved. People maybe not be comfortable
Privacy
with
is
that.
dead. They're not going to
Yeah,
be.
but we'll see how it goes. I mean, even in San Francisco where I live, like I think there was some resistance for SFPD to using drones. I think that's kind of gone. I mean, I'm sure some people have, there's various opinions, but if you look at the actual behavior, the SFPD does use drones. And
Hmm.
most people I talk to are like, that's good because smash and grabs are super terrible, and this is a way to catch guys. And I think they've been very good at marketing it. Putting these videos on Twitter of like a drone view, looking at like a bad guy, following it around, showing the police arrest the guy. So there's a public perception thing being worked on. So I think that there's that cameras using infrastructure. There's cameras getting into robotic systems, of course, and then I think about the way I think about it is cameras used to be the endpoint of camera data. It was a human looking at images or video,
Hmm.
but I think we're shifting where cameras are consuming information where the human will never even look at the images or video. It's just too much, but they'll look at a summarized version or some answer that they want
Yeah.
that's compressed in some way, maybe down to
Montage,
text
maybe.
or a
Yeah.
montage or something. Um, and and that's like that relies on the continuing improvement of cameras, and it relies on advances in computer vision and artificial intelligence to like reliably translate a massive amount of images into like an answer to a question. But at OpenSpace, that's kind of one thing that we do and we work on. So if you are, we had a little demo of this at our user conference recently, but it was a simple idea. It's like you are building a building and you want to know where your materials are. Like, is the drywall there for the drywall folks to install it? Like, could you just ask OpenSpace where the stacks of drywall,
Hmm.
and it just knows. And we're getting to that point, so that's pretty exciting. Or you want to know if people are on schedule, and could you take all the images and just say like you're on schedule or not by just
Yeah.
analyzing everything that's in there. And the truth is that's a very sophisticated, difficult problem because even skilled humans have a hard time making that judgment. But even combining human and artificial intelligence to get to the answer is very interesting to me. So I agree. I think we're early. Like cameras continue getting more sophisticated to get connected, and our ability to process video data and spatial information is we're just toying with it. It's not like in 5-10 years it's going to be ridiculous what we're able to build.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very exciting. Very exciting. I don't know if I told you that at Presto, we also had a thesis of computer vision. So we used to think that there would be cameras everywhere, inside and outside a restaurant,
Yeah.
and you'd be able to map every single operational touch point. So like every single every time the waiter came to your table, you'd be able to know. You'd be able to measure that. So you'd be able to measure, are people keeping to spec? On
Yeah.
like on waiter touch points. How long did it take them to clean the table after
Right.
you left? You can even monitor like, are people cooking things correctly in the kitchen, like every single like because restaurants are like they're factories and they're retail environments
Yeah.
at the same time. And then the drive-throughs, of course, what we were doing, we were recognizing cars.
Yeah.
So we'd be able to recognize repeat visitors, and then you can like tailor. You can actually like also like you tailor the sales basically to the car. So if it's like a more expensive car, you could actually tell like give them a more expensive upsell
Yeah.
versus like a cheaper car. Like there's a lot of things you could do, and I still I mean that application I think is very powerful, but the customers in restaurants were a bit slow to adopt, to be honest, right? Like it wasn't the most
Yeah.
sophisticated.
No, totally. It's about what are the actual pain they're experiencing. I'll tell you, that sounds interesting. I worked at McDonald's in high school, the drive-through. That's shout out to the people that work at drive-throughs. That is such a difficult job. Like the cognitive load is insane. Um, and so just relieving the pain of a drive-through worker would be great. Now, obviously, drive-through people working the drive-through aren't making the corporate buying decisions at McDonald's or whatever. But I feel for you drive-through people. I've been there. But yeah, I think it's all about relieving these pain points too. One interesting thing at OpenSpace is like the pain of just not knowing what the hell is going on is very real. People feel it, and if you can address it, then that's good. But then there's all these other things you can add to it, and just finding the time in your customer's mind and in your own company's journey to insert these things is not easy. But one thing that as we get higher, we get more and more adoption, you start selling to and communicating with the C-suite, which is cool. And what their pain points are related to, but they're kind of can be distinct from the front lines. In the same way that like a waiter may not care about the operational efficiency, but maybe the if it's maybe if you own a franchise of like 80 chilies or whatever, you would. One example of that is us as insurance, and this is cool too. I would say another way that cameras and computer vision might get more deployed is um, we have this thing now where we can say to our customers, if you use OpenSpace, you will literally save money on your insurance policies. And there's lots of complex insurance policies for construction companies. Um, and the reason is there's an insurance company that just studied the use of open space versus not open space building projects, and they found that the claims frequency is way less on open space using um, builders. And if there could be selection bias in there that people use our technology are inherently good builders, so they also measured a given builder before and after using the technology and watch the claims frequency go down a lot. Um, and so this insurance company called Shepherd, very interesting company, said, okay, we can underwrite that, and we have competitive advantage because we can make insurance cheaper, and that's like a no-brainer for CFOs of construction companies. The reason I bring that up is you look at these applications of computer vision technology that have all these potential benefits, and then what actually lands with the customer, and just trying to drive that into something that is tangible for them is really cool. So, the idea that like a computer vision or AI or software company could literally make it less expensive to build a building is kind of crazy, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense, but we've actually done it. Um, and so I feel like those are some of the unlocks across industries when you can make those moves that can really create a lot of change and adoption of technologies for because it just makes sense to everybody. Everybody in that company can say this is a good thing. We should use it.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense, and I'm excited for her, the work you're doing in this space, and I think there's a lot of growth potential for the technology you're building. So it
Yeah,
sounds like a lot of people could probably benefit from some of this spatial AI stuff. And I think there's work going on in multiple industries in this front. Robotics is
yeah.
definitely one, and then self-driving cars. Um, but I think in some other industries it's very nascent.
Oh yeah,
And like I invested in a company called Protex. They did, or they're still doing. I mean, they're doing a health and safety analysis for warehouses.
yep,
So like they put cameras in warehouses, and they're basically trying to like capture potential dangerous situations.
hmm,
Again, maybe it could be good for insurance, but also just for the management there. People need it becoming a compliance thing, right? Like they need to
yeah,
feel like they need this. But in general, like you can imagine, almost every work site or every job site, every place where people work is going to be full of cameras.
yeah.
But there shouldn't be privacy in those places. Those are places for work, right? So,
Yeah, well, that's
um,
a really interesting thing too. Is like one thing when we were getting open space off the ground is this privacy concern of people like, no, I don't want these cameras. But I think details matter. Like any business, details matter. The difference between an idea that makes sense and one that doesn't can come down to the details. And for us, I think there were kind of two key. Well, you just ask these guys like, is this will you like it? And if they're like no, then don't start the company, right? So we definitely did that. But I think what it boiled down to for us is with open space, like as we were talking about earlier, it's not constantly on. It's just someone walks around with the camera, they pop it on their hard hat, they do their walk, they take it off. And so people feel like they have control. And that's not just a privacy control thing. The truth is like sticking lots of cameras everywhere on a construction site is kind of not practical because do you have power or not? The thing is getting built. Well, anything that's at a job site is in danger of getting destroyed.
yeah, of course, of
Like
course, yeah,
so. There's a practical thing to it, and then also what you said is totally right. It's a work area. There are already expectations that if you're the general contractor and you wanted to take photos of what's going on, like the trades are not going to be like, no, you can't. You're forbidden from that. And vice versa. If trades want to like document their work, that makes sense. They have the right to do that. So I think a lot of those questions kind of go away, both due to the fact that it's a work area and not like a consumer public area, and also the details of actually how you're collecting these images. Is it going to make people get their hackles up or not?
yeah, yeah. Another thing that I think about is like, the the Meta Ray-Ban glasses, their
Yeah.
key feature is a camera,
Yeah.
in the glasses, right? Like, so like cameras are getting smaller and being inserted in all sorts of different, you know, um, wearables as well, I guess at this point.
Yeah, the meta ray thing is really interesting. I mean, have you seen just people wearing those around yet? I mean, I've like among tech weirdos, like I know, like such as myself and co-founders and whatnot, like we're definitely experimenting with them. I'm very curious to see if that gets wider adoption or not. It's like the details matter. Is it like because Snap's experimented with this, and
Yeah.
like is the camera visible or not?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and things like that. I don't know how to predict the future on that, but it's very
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen too many people walking around with the camera on because the light does come on, so
Yeah,
that's how you know.
yeah,
But I've heard from other people that they use it to take photos of their kids or videos of their kids when
yeah,
playing with their kids, right? Which I
yeah.
can see because kids at a certain age get very uncomfortable or they get very self-conscious when you point
Right.
a phone at them.
Yeah.
So actually, to have this, it would solve a problem for me for sure.
Right.
But ironic, my prescription is too strong. They don't actually support my subscription or my prescription.
Yeah.
So
You need to get LASIK. You need to have a LASIK plus Meta Ray Bans bundle deal so you can.
exactly, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's an interesting, again, application of cameras, and you got to imagine there'll be more sort of wearables, and people may want to record video of everything they do,
Yeah.
in their daily lives.
Well, that's like that old, people talk about in the 50s. What was it? I feel like I'm a bad MIT student. It's Gordon Bell's project.
Mm,
Had a cool name. The idea of
mm,
wearing a camera at all times and just recording everything.
okay.
I mean, there's definitely like, what is it? Black Mirror versions of that. And then there's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
ones that are maybe,
That was the contact. Yeah, the contacts that could record video, and you can go play back like old stuff. Yeah.
but it's very interesting. I mean, like that's the cool sci-fi stuff is like, if that existed, what world would we live in and what would be the benefits and what would be like the sort of unintended consequences? Very interesting to think about.
Yep. Well, on that note, I think we should wrap. This has been a fascinating conversation, Jeevan. Really appreciate you coming on and chatting about this. It's again, I think it was one of the underhyped areas of AI, surprisingly, and lots more to come.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely my pleasure, and it's good to reconnect with you and get a podcast done at the same time. So thanks for having me.